You'll notice from this picture, one of the defining factors is we're out in the middle of nowhere by ourselves. So basically when it comes to GGOS, we have to take care of things pretty much for ourselves. This is an image, and a few of the ones that follow it are what you're accustomed to seeing when we talk about Australia. And obviously we have this lovely Sydney Harbour here, followed by some of our wildlife. And there's plenty of it. 15 seconds is a long time when you're waiting. Sorry. Ayers Rock, another geological feature in Australia, out in central Australia. In terms of scale, this is somewhere like 2,000 kilometres away from Sydney, and it's only midway across the country. Yes, kangaroos can swim. It's an idyllic picture, but what we'll get to in a moment is the fact that not all of the pictures that come out of Australia are quite so idyllic. In terms of the footage we've just seen from Mars, it's really not that different from Central Australia if you think about it. Yes, we have a little bit of scrub and some people living there, but you just haven't found that part of Mars yet. But there are some nicer parts. Interestingly, these hills are caused by tectonics on what we think is a stable plate. They are eroded away, southern Flinders Ranges in South Australia. So in terms of this idyllic vision of what we have for Australia, this is what a lot of people actually think are the major hazards, major dangers that we have in a country like Australia. But the reality is that most of the danger we have is caused by the ring of fire around the Pacific Ocean. Whilst we're on a stable plate, we are still influenced very much by this ring of fire, and therefore we do have hazards, intraplate hazards. This is an earthquake in Kalgoorlie that occurred a year and a half ago. It was only a small earthquake, but it still manages to rip down facades off buildings. It's nowhere near as bad as the one that our neighbours in New Zealand suffered 2 years ago, but it's enough. We also have these little floods occasionally. This is the Ipswich flood that occurred in 2011 summer. And all of the estimates are that this will get worse as we suffer through climate change. Of course, you do also, when you get very wet like that, have the occasional landslide. This is the Thredbo landslide that killed a couple dozen people about a decade ago up in the snowfields. Just too much saturated groundwater. And of course, one of the other things about Australia is we have a rather long coastline. And as sea level rises, we have these erosion events that take away some of our idyllic beaches. I'm not sure where the kangaroos will go swimming now. They'll have to find somewhere different, I guess. So we also have these other things, society, people live there. And for them, they need positioning. They need the reference frame. They need GGOS to service our society. And there's a really strong need for improved efficiencies in a country of that size. So we invest reasonably heavily in GGOS. We have VLBI systems, we have SLR, we have GNSS, and we have gravity systems, and we also have Zahir's favourite, which is the Intertechnique local ties. We also have this program called AusScope. It was an initiative through research funding to build some new VLBI sites, build a little GPS network. More recently to start to look at deformation across basins, and in the future to look at the maintenance of that stuff. So unlike our Italian friends who like their optical instruments, we prefer a balanced diet, all of the different techniques, and hopefully enough to solve the problems of GGOS. The problem is that that's Australia. We need, as a community, to find a way, and this is switching across to my GIAC hat, of making geodetic infrastructure and the services financially stable through time, because as we heard, geodesists don't get paid enough. So the GGIM is a process that we're following up on now to try and get some advocacy for the IAG and for GGOS and for its services, trying to get a resolution up through the United Nations to support the activity of this community by lobbying your governments effectively. So the next step are a couple of key meetings over the next year, and hopefully we'll get some sort of a resolution through the UN in 2 to 3 years' time, supporting the activity of IAG. Last but not least, GGOS and Geoscience Australia, peas in a pod. Thank you.